Hi there, and welcome to our webinar on web design trends, what to embrace and avoid in 2016. My name is Justin Thorpe, and I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing Operations at AddThis. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. We're recording this webinar, and we will send out links to the recording and slides. Please submit your questions in the GoToWebinar console on the right of your screen. For those of you not familiar with AddThis, we help companies optimize marketing effectiveness with tools and audiences powered by extraordinary interest-based behavioral data. You likely have seen our share buttons, which are currently on over 15 million websites. Over the last year, we've been expanding our offering to help marketers better and engage and convert their customers. Specifically, we've been doing this through website marketing tools like welcome bars, overlays, and sliders, where you can promote personalized messages and calls to action for different types of visitors that come to your website. For example, we showed our mobile-friendly overlay to many of you as you exited the landing page for this webinar. We featured a relevant design article we thought this audience might enjoy. The result? A 14% click-through rate. Many of our tools are free, and we'd love for you to give them a try and tell us what you think. All you have to do is activate the tools in your dashboard or head over to addthis.com to sign up. But enough about us. On to today's talk. Tom is the VP of Design at Viget, a DC-based digital agency. Tom is an incredibly well-regarded designer. He's a thought leader and manages a large team of designers. All of this has helped his agency Viget get a world-class reputation through work with clients like PBS, Time Life, the World Wildlife Federation, Politico, and many more. For today's talk, Tom is going to help us navigate the world of web design trends. He'll show us what we should focus on and what to avoid. Especially in the new year, I can imagine a lot of us are contemplating website redesigns, so this will be incredibly timely. And now, Tom, over to you. There you go, Tom.
Yes, thanks, Justin. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, did you get the little pop-up to say take?
Yes. Okay.
There we go.
Great. All right, thanks again. Hey, everybody. As Justin mentioned, I'm Tom, and I'm happy to be spending the next 15 to 30 minutes with you. Now, I should get this off my chest first by telling you that I'm by no means an expert on the subject of web trends. I'm not a full-time researcher nor a journalist. That said, I have been working in the web design industry for over 20 years, so I do have some thoughts to offer to you today. I should also warn you that if you came here looking for the latest trendy term, you'll probably be better served by your favorite search engine. All you have to do is search for 2016 web trends and you'll find dozens of articles looking back on the last year with eyes on the future. Instead, I thought it might be fun to look at a few trends as heroes and villains, what to be aware of and what to focus on instead. Let's get started. Meet our first villain, sameness. With this, I'm largely talking about the use of template designs and theme galleries. Now, I should say that I'm not against the use of these, not at all. I think they serve their purpose well, which is as a starting place. If you're going to start with a template or theme, you'll want to customize it or make it your own. That way, in a sea of sameness, you'll stand out. As famed ad man George Lois says in his book, in the act of creativity, being careful guarantees sameness and mediocrity, which means your work will be invisible. There's no shortage of template galleries available, whether you're starting out in WordPress, Tumblr, Squarespace, or a platform of your choice. There are thousands of options and some really good ones. They'll make ordinary Joes like you and I look incredibly professional without much extra work. The point I'm trying to make here is that the clothes alone don't make a person. Take proper time to tell your story through good writing. Choose imagery that reflects your mission, vision, and values, and as best you can, make sure that your voice and tone reflect your brand personality. Now, there's an interesting trend brewing in the area of artificial intelligence. New platforms like the grid promise to design your site for you based on your content and imagery. This is cool because it emphasizes the content as important as the design. One thing they claim to do is use an automated tool to examine your imagery and then offer color palettes for you to choose from. Sources do tell me that there's a bit of design curation that leads to a final selection, but this is a step above static template design. With any luck, this is just one more option available to those who need help. When I talk about storytelling, I'm specifically talking about how you tell your story. Without good content, you'll never get noticed. Researchers in a study by Xerox found that colored visuals increase people's willingness to read a piece of content by 80%. So if you want to be remembered, pair your content with relevant imagery, whether it be illustration, photography, video, or infographics. Brands like Dropbox have gone as far as creating a consistent illustration style that permeates their products and services. It's beautiful, consistent, and offers a bit of whimsy to an otherwise faceless product. Further, adding personalization helps your audience connect with you via their own interests. This is what keeps us engaged and coming back for more. Think about how we're already using our favorite movie and music sites to help us discover more entertainment. So how can you avoid sameness? Simply spend time on your content and narrative in addition to the design. You can save money by doing as much as you can by yourself. Or if you'd rather hire a freelancer, there are communities like Freelancer.com, Fiverr, and Upwork, and many others that help you find someone suitable to your needs. Or if you prefer to have someone else do the heavy lifting, hire a designer or agency to help you. That brings us to villain number 2, bloat. I'm talking about the data-rich bloat that comes with our precious music and movie entertainment that we love so dearly. Perhaps someday we'll have unlimited and ubiquitous access to the internet. Until that day, we're at the mercy of our data plans and access to Wi-Fi. This means the faster and lighter and snappier our web experiences are, the happier we'll all be. To put some perspective on this, digital marketing agency Syndicast predicts that 74% of all internet traffic will be video in 2017. Another source, Uyala, says that last year mobile video plays were up nearly 850% since 2012. From short-form Snapchat clips to long-form Netflix movies to live broadcasting through Periscope, we can't seem to get enough. The line between our laptops and televisions is blurring more than ever before. And what's odd about this is it seems like just yesterday that we saw major players like Microsoft, Apple, and Google flatten their user interfaces. They promised lightweight graphics, which would load quickly to a variety of different device types, from tiny phones to enormous cinema displays. Now, isn't it weird that this would be happening alongside our insatiable demand for data-intensive rich media? I'll say that again. Isn't it weird that we're optimizing graphics for speed when more entertainment is going online? I think there's more to the story here. I believe this is as much about optimization as it is about speed and usability. We, as consumers, want to find what we're looking for quickly and easily. Then when we find it, we want to watch, listen, play, read, learn, or otherwise experience something deeply. What we're seeing emerge now is voice-based search, whether you're talking to Siri, Cortana, or Alexa. We simply want to play our favorite playlist or watch the new Star Wars trailer without having to fumble through clumsy user interfaces. So how can you avoid creating a bloat monster? First, avoid creating a paradox of choice for your audience by offering too many options. Second, think about how your pathways might be as simple as voice commands. And last, don't recklessly use images, audio, or video files. Make sure your content is worth the load time and cost of data to those of us without a speedy Wi-Fi connection. And finally, our last villain, exclusion. This is as much about usability and access as it is about broadening our audiences and making larger profits. Now that more of the world is online, our awareness of visual, hearing, mobility, and cognitive impairments should rise as digital generations age. Alongside this trend, a tolerance for prohibitive access or difficult usability will likely be tested. DisabledWorld.com says about 75 million people in the U.S. alone have some type of physical disability. They also state that 1 in 4 of today's 20-year-olds will become disabled before retirement. Yes, there are many different types of disabilities, and some are more disabling than others, but it's alarming that 12 million Americans already require assistance with everyday tasks, and over 7 million have difficulty with vision or hearing. Chances are high that you currently have or will eventually have a family member with some form of impairment that impedes easy use of the internet. Now, interestingly, well-formatted machine-readable text benefits both screen reading technology and search engine optimization. That simply means that optimizing for your blind and deaf users also benefits SEO and therefore broadening your overall audience. On the internet, a 1 or 2% boost could mean the addition of millions of users to your reach. Equally important is style formatting, designing for good readability and testing for proper contrast. Now, as a designer, this is an area where I feel a great deal of responsibility. Start by choosing font styles that are easier to read. Be sure your type size isn't too small or your line spacing too tight that letters and lines of text run together. And last, use a color contrast tool to ensure the contrast passes with at least a AA rating. Last, studies have shown that people following directions with text and illustrations do over 300% better than people following directions without illustrations. This is as much about a visual enhancement to the text as it is about breaking up large blocks of copy and making the text more inviting to read. In other words, don't just paste a bunch of text into your site. Think about the highlights and how you might emphasize them more through imagery, formatting, or concise summaries. Ultimately, the goal is good comprehension for all, whether or not you have a cognitive impairment. So how can you avoid exclusion? First, learn what you can about better web accessibility through resources like webaim.org. Also, make sure you're not contributing to bad practices like color contrast. And if you need to, do hire someone with some expertise. You get out of it what you put into it. So these are the 3 web villains that I shared with you. First, the lack of attention to your narrative may lead to a sense of sameness to others on the web. Next, the disregard for your time and money that comes with confusing interfaces and bloated content. And finally, how the exclusion of those of us with impairments hurts your overall audience and potential reach. So if those are our villains, these are our heroes. First, at the end of the day, it's unique storytelling that draws us in and keeps us engaged. Next, when wayfinding works optimally, we find what we want quickly and consume it deeply. And last, that inclusive and accessible content is good for both business and humanity. Hey, thanks for listening along, and many thanks to AddThis for this opportunity. You can follow me on Twitter @_@Traz, or if you'd like to learn more about our agency Viget, you can find us at viget.com.
Thanks so much, Tom. And now it's time for Q&A, so make sure to submit your questions. I've got a few here. I'm going to steal presenter mode back from you, share my screen. Yeah, so definitely if you have any questions, make sure to submit them. We would love to, we've got Tom here, so great opportunity to get as many questions answered as possible. First, from Jessica, you say not to overwhelm my visitors with too many options, but my site has 5 different major audiences that I'm trying to talk to. How do I choose what content to prioritize?
Excellent question. I think this is largely about trying to figure out when and where it's appropriate to talk to a specific audience. And sometimes that means starting with the broader audience and then helping to point them to places to go to get more information on something that you believe that they're interested in. Now it's tough because on the internet in some ways your audience is everyone, but the more you can rein that in, the better off your results will be.
John Conway asks, what color contrasting tools do you use to check readability?
Mm-hmm. I do have some sources. Well, for one, I wrote a blog post. You can see on it there, close to the bottom, at viget.com/inspire/color contrast, and I've identified some tools there. One that speaks to me as a designer is one called Colorable, I believe by Jackson Black, and that's one that I go to every now and then. But there are several others, and I've identified those in my article.
We'll make sure to send out a link to that article in the follow-up that goes out. That way, everyone can get a link to that and all the associated resources. Another question. In regards to exclusion, do you have any specific suggestions on where to find making web design geared towards those with disabilities? You talked about webaim.org. Are there other resources that you would recommend?
The W3C has a lot of information about web accessibility as well. Honestly, there are many, and I don't have a favorite. Maybe I would start with webaim.org and then try some other sources as well. And then dive deeper in. And like I said, if you get in the weeds, it's good to hire somebody who has some expertise because they'll be able to get you the answers more quickly.
The World Wide Web Consortium of the W3C resources w3.org/WAI, and we'll also make sure that that's a link that gets sent around in the follow-up email. And if there's enough interest, maybe put this in the feedback survey. If you're interested in learning more about web accessibility, maybe we can do a follow-up webinar on that specifically. A few friends I could hit up to do that, which would be great. Brady Lee asks, any advice for how to create graphic elements on a limited budget?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where I would, if you're not interested or capable yourself, there are some resources where you can hire freelancers or illustrators, individuals, photographers, whatever it might be, for less cost than hiring an agency or a full-time designer. Some of those I mentioned were Freelancer.com, Fiverr, and Upwork. And what's helpful is they source people from all over the world, so you'll find people in different markets that will offer different rates for the work. So that's what I would say is if you're looking to do it on a budget and you can't do it yourself, I would just shop around.
Awesome. Thanks. Matthew Duhan asks, should we design websites focusing on mobile devices first?
This question comes up a lot for us, and usually we like to look at our data first and see what it's telling us. That said, I do think it's a good practice to start with mobile first, if only for trying to understand what content is most important and what the priority of that is. Because I find if you design for a larger screen, you're tempted to put more unnecessary information or content on your screens than if you are thinking about it from a mobile first context. That said, there have been times when we've looked at data and it's told us that the mobile audience is very small. This is usually in business to business, where a lot of the audience is using laptops or larger screens, whereas with business to consumer type of ventures, there's a much larger mobile audience.
Yes, and just as a fun announcement, we are going to be doing a webinar specifically on how to develop a mobile strategy. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, definitely stay tuned. We should be announcing that as early as next week. Paul asks, I'm an SMB. What would you suggest is a reasonable rate for paying a freelancer, and what is a good way to judge quality of that freelancer?
I'm sorry, Justin. Can you help me understand? I'm not familiar with the term SMV.
Oh, small to medium-sized business. So if you're a smaller company, what how do you know you're not getting taken advantage of by someone, both in terms of cost, but then also from a quality perspective?
Well, I mean, part of it's just getting to know what your options are and who your people are, who you're available. Ask around, talk to people who are in the business and have done it before. Some of it's just going to be, developing your own good discretion, and sometimes you have to try out a few people before you find the person that you love working with. There is a book by Mike Montero, I believe, called "You're My Favorite Client." Is that the name of the title, Justin? Do you recall?
I'm not familiar with the book, but
Okay.
we'll look it up, and we'll definitely add that to the notes in the follow-up afterwards.
Yeah, Mike Montero, who's a designer for Mule Design, founder of that company, he has written 2 books, one that's geared towards designers working with clients, and another one that's geared towards clients working with designers. And I would recommend the book that's for clients working with designers as a good read to get a lot of much better advice than I can offer about that.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that and then send that link around. Next question from Madison. What are your recommendations for publishers who need to host ads for revenue but don't want to hurt speed, user experience, and still maintain a clean interface?
So this is about what do you do when you're trying to create a clean interface, but you're kind of at the mercy of advertising?
Right. Yeah. So if you make money from advertising that you put on your website, but at the same time you don't want to hurt speed or user experience, do you have any advice or recommendations on how to approach that?
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2 things here. One is, how do you work with the legacy of banner advertisements and their fixed formats, and then there's the other question, which is what's the future of advertising? As far as working with banner advertising, one of our clients, WRAL, this was a definite thing for us. WRAL is a news broadcast organization in the North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham Triangle area, and they have a huge reach, huge audience reach. But when we were designing the site, we were hampered with banner advertising, and part of that was just trying to have a strategy that worked well with from desktop to mobile. How do we work well with the banner ads? And to be honest, it's tricky. Those formats aren't always mobile friendly, and they have their limitations in terms of their effectiveness. I believe that in the next few years, and I think it's already happening, we're going to start to see specific banner ad size and those units go away in favor of more advertising that's, on the one hand, video based. So as much as people hate the pre-roll, I think we're going to see more of videos popping in as you're experiencing something, and then oftentimes the pre-roll before you watch a piece of video content. I anticipate we'll see more of that and less of the graphical banner ad that we've seen in the past.
Awesome. Thanks. Next question from Chuck. Convincing clients how accessibility can be programmed. Let me start again. Convincing clients how critical accessibility is can be problematic. Are there any sources out there I could use to strengthen my case? I mean, and I guess also just to kind of add my color to the question, like, are there any specific use cases that you have used, Tom, at Viget to help make the case for making websites accessible?
Mm-hmm. This is an area I think we've written a few blog posts on our site about this subject, and I think when people are just thinking about it as an add-on cost, it doesn't seem to tell its story properly. But if you're thinking about accessibility from the very beginning and baking it into the work you're doing, the expenses are minimal in terms of extra time spent. So part of that is doing it from the beginning instead of doing it at the end. And the other piece is just, I mean, if you're honestly looking at audience reach and you're looking at your potential market, I think the argument is made by itself, which is you're always striving for larger reach, and if that's important to you, then it's worth the investment up front.
Awesome. Last question. This is from Tommy Williams. Every e-commerce website is nearly the same because people are used to the same type of site. How do you approach a unique design but still allowing a user to feel comfortable with the website?
Mm-hmm. This is a huge challenge today because with responsive design and as I said, the template galleries being so prevalent, it's difficult. There's just a ton of sameness, and I think what it really gets down to is approaching the design from a brand standpoint and really trying to understand what the brand personality of an organization is. What are the mission, vision, and values of the organization, and how does that influence the design? How does that influence your consistency with graphical elements? I mentioned Dropbox. I think they're an excellent example of using illustration throughout their site to give it a unique look and feel without weighing it down any. They go as far as they'll hire designers that work specifically with their illustration style that's been produced so that they can carry it through more than just one person could do alone.
Awesome. Unfortunately, we're out of time for questions. Definitely follow up with Tom on Twitter. I believe his Twitter handle is @_TROZ. So if you have any further questions or want to engage with him or find out more about Viget, I would definitely highly recommend following up with Tom directly. Thanks so much to everyone for coming, and thanks to Tom for sharing your wisdom. We will be sending the slides, video, and a summary of today's webinar to everyone, and we'll definitely see you at the next Add This webinar. We have a lot coming up. If you want to see the full schedule of Add This webinars, check out our blog, addthis.com/blog. On the right-hand side, there'll be a full schedule of all the upcoming webinars. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you again soon.